Guess who's back? Back again. The Ranter is back for another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And no, it's not just a rambling diatribe of the news of the day. It's something pretty specific. Now, I have to preface this that a member of my group on Facebook for Middle America, a friend of mine named Larry, who posted a number of articles concerning Buck v. Bell, which was a Supreme Court decision in 1927 written by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., in which the court ruled that the state statute permitting compulsory sterilization of the unfit, including the intellectually disabled, for the protection and health of the state did not violate due process clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Despite the changing attitudes in coming decades regarding sterilization, the Supreme Court has never expressly overturned Buck v. Bell. It was widely believed to have been slightly weakened by Skinner v. Oklahoma in 1942, which involved the compulsory sterilization of male habitual criminals and came to a contrary result. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 has also made guarantees protections of the federal government to people with disabilities, including the intellectually disabled. Alright. He posted this and posted a number of associated articles concerning the various people over the years that was legal under Buck v. Bell that were sterilized. Sterilization of African American women, where 7,600 women who were sterilized by state between the years 1933 and 1973. About 5,000 were African American. In light of this history, North Carolina became the first state to offer compensation for surviving victims of compulsory sterilization. Cool, right? Compulsory sterilization of disabled people, we discussed that in the U.S. prison system, was permitted in the United States from 1907 to 1960s, during which approximately 60,000 people were sterilized, two-thirds of these people being women. During this time, compulsory sterilization was motivated by eugenics. Okay? And then, from the article that he posted, National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum expresses outrage at forced sterilization of immigrant women detained by ICE. This was an article released in September 15, 2020. A whistleblower complaint filed on Monday, September 14th, accused the Irwin County Detention Center in Osceola, Georgia, of performing stunning frequent hysterectomies on immigrant women in detention. The center houses people incarcerated by Immigrant and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Some women were reportedly unsure why the procedure, a surgery to remove a person's uterus and possibly their ovaries to render them unable to become pregnant, was performed on them, or were not fully informed of what procedures would be performed on them. The administration has a track record of subjecting women of color seeking entry into the United States to mistreatment related to their reproductive rights and health. It has detained thousands of pregnant women in detention centers with inhumane conditions and with inadequate access to health care, severely limited eligibility for asylum for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors, and tried to coerce detained immigrant minors into carrying their pregnancies to term by blocking their access to abortion, and track the pregnancies and menstrual periods of unaccustomed minors in custody. Now, reason why I'm bringing all this up, okay? Given the joy that pro-lifers seem to be having over the leak spoiler that the Supreme Court is going to vote to bring down Roe v. Wade as a federal protection, kicking abortion, or the right for an abortion for women, down to the states. And we've certainly seen the number of states who already had heartbeat bills on that they had in the last few years, which was leading up to this vote, because they made it as horrible and draconian as possible so they can get challenged so it could get to the Supreme Court, where the 6-3 majority would be able to finally, after 49 years, prevail in robbing women the protections under federal law to have the right over their body autonomy to choose. Now, I have to preface this on there are people who are pro-life who are truly goddamn pro-life. And this is no disrespect to them. Because what I mean by truly pro-life, I mean people who now don't just stop caring as soon as the child is born, but that actually advocates for healthcare, education, making sure the mother and the child are both taken care of, and making sure the child thrives, and not because it's a political football that is bright and shiny until it's born and then they move on to the next person who is expecting, and to make sure that they walk them to their goal line for the political benefits and donor money and votes and all the other stuff so they can be great little Christians and all that bullshit. But again, here's the problem with this. The Buck v. Bell Supreme Court decision in 1927. That's 95 years old. That that has been on the books, surviving on the books, without anyone seriously challenging it or thinking of overthrowing it or removing it for 95 years. And during this 95-year period, from Calvin Coolidge to now with Joe Biden, that's a lot of presidents that's gone by, a lot of presidential administrations, a lot of Democrats and Republicans. Calvin Coolidge was Republican. But with that long of a time frame between 1927 and 2022, regardless of it being Republican or Democrat, that doesn't matter at all. Because both parties have been in power multiple times in the past 95 years. Supreme Court makeup has changed over the past 95 years, and no one has bothered to mention this. My argument, again, is not for true pro-life people who actually give a shit beyond birth, but these people who are politically pro-life, who are doing it just to get the donor money, the support, the votes, to get their soundbite on the news channels for the talking heads, so they can get their supporters to clap, or just to make a name for themselves so they get their little soundbite out, either on the news shows or on Twitter or on interviews, like when they're in the Senate House or wherever, in the congressional well, wherever. But no one, regardless being pro-life or pro-choice, has mentioned this. Now, if someone's truly pro-life, it wouldn't matter. They should be up in arms about this, too. But they're not. We don't hear about this from either side. Not only that no one is answering the question about this, no one is asking the question about this. Now, again, I'm just a blip on YouTube. I'd be lucky if I get a dozen people to look at this, because I'm just ranting out into the void. I'm just venting my frustrations out. This is more of a cathartic thing, and I appreciate those who actually listen to this. But there are people far bigger than me in this that should use their influence to ask the question. And I'm not talking about people who are podcasters, and I'm not talking about people, my fellow people who are on YouTube. I'm talking about people with influence. It's true influence. Why aren't pro-life organizations discussing this? Why is it, like, in the situation concerning ICE and the hysterectomies and that sterilization, why is that only brought up by Democrats only for the point of being against Trump at the time for what was happening at the border, from the children being ripped from their parents and all the detention centers and the indeterminate times that they were going to be detained, and in the very beginning of that whole period when the women were removed and no one knew where the women went. I mean, I remember when they asked the woman involved with Homeland Security, where were the women? She said she didn't know. You're the head of this. You're supposed to know this shit, and you didn't know. And again, we have to make sure we understand each other on this, that this is both parties are involved in this. Because the border crisis didn't start and end with Trump. Biden continued what Trump was doing. For someone who ran against this inhumanity that I have spoken about multiple times, and he continues it, which is why I hope there's somebody going to be stepping up to the plate in 2024 from the Democratic side of the aisle that goes, maybe we should have another alternative as opposed to him, because either that, I'm voting for Mickey Mouse. From Biden to Trump to Obama to everybody who's come and gone who had no idea really what to do about the border other than to demonize the people that were coming to the border. But that was the only time we ever heard anything about the hysterectomies, forced sterilizations of migrants, pro-lifers. Why aren't you having a problem with this? I can actually expect an answer. I can expect a knee-jerk answer that they're holding their mouths closed so they don't say it. But the knee-jerk reaction is because they're not American. That is probably the answer they want to say. Because there is no good faith answer for someone who claims to be pro-life, is clinking the champagne glasses on making sure that women do not have the federal protections to have the right to choose, and making damn sure that many of these states that already have heartbeat bills already have trigger legislation ready for Roe v. Wade to go down so they can just outlaw abortion in their states utterly. Not just have heartbeat bills, just none. Gone. But when they're excited doing that to make sure these people are denied that right, we hear nothing of them when it's about people being compelled to be sterilized. Where are they? Why aren't we hearing from them? Again, a knee-jerk answer. They're not American. So should that mean that they're not worthy of the same basic human respect? The same viability of them to have the ability to have children while they're in our land or at our border? I read what Larry had posted upon the statistics of those that came before this, that happened to those in prison, that happened to African Americans, that happened to those who were mentally, emotionally challenged, apparently. or disabled. That was just fucking okay. 95 years on the books. Where are any of you on this? I'm waiting. No, that's just facetious. Fine, whatever. Point. And you can't get around it. If you have nothing to say about Buck v. Bell, if you have nothing to say about forced compulsory sterilization, you are not fucking pro-life. You were barely pro-life to begin with, because if you were really, truly, honest to God pro-life, then you would be about education, healthcare. You would be about making sure the family was taken care of, and making sure the children were thriving beyond birth, making sure that the price of baby formula should be down, the price of diapers should be down, the prices of baby food should be down, baby clothing should be down. Those should be things for you all to want to always be affordable, always. And I don't want to hear the shit about it, oh, it's just the inflation. Because I've seen for years at my store how much baby formula costs. I've seen people who desperately buy them by the canister, buy them in bulk, and they're shelling out $160. You want these children born so bad, but they don't want people to afford it? I mean... And on the same token of wanting to be truly pro-life, shouldn't you also want there to be sexual education in school? And I don't know what people are going on about on sex ed, because people have some really funny ideas of what they think sex ed is in the class, in school. Because when I vaguely remember when I was a teenager, and that was another millennia ago, yeah, back in the 90s, it was clinical. It was just about the basic facts of the human anatomy. Nothing untoward. And when the genders were separated, when they were teaching it, it was just the basic facts. And anything else involved around it, your parents were totally in on the conversation, and they can discuss the more intimate qualities of it. But I guess in order to scaremong people, sex education is now what? Just excuse for pornography in school? Is that the scare line? That's why you don't want it done? When you hear about, let's say, I saw this last day or so about the Mississippi governor who almost let the cat out of the bag, that not only that they were going to try to get rid of abortion, they're going to get rid of contraception. And said something to the effect of, they also need to make sure that they help they help the families, I mean the mother and the child after the birth and so forth. And that's great to hear. However, Mississippi is the state with the highest infant mortality rate. Before there was anyone, without even setting aside the whole idea of choice, because it's Mississippi, maybe they need to work on that a little bit more and not make it a political statement. So, but the thing is about whole sexual education and contraception being a pro-life, should be a pro-life banner, because that is supposed to make sure through the education, through contraception, that it prevents there to even be a need of abortion. I mean, through the philosophy of how relationships are supposed to go, that comes through the parents, that comes parents, friends, The educational part, the actual anatomy parts come from the school. Communities with a strong sexual education and a good track record in the buying and receiving of contraception. Those communities have little to no abortions happening, nor that there's any real numbers of incidents such as rape and sexual misconducts and so forth, because people are fucking educated. People are paying attention to each other. You're showing that, hey, this is right, this is wrong. You know, not just fling your hands up into the air. You know, just have faith that, you know, only the parents and the parents alone are going to handle this when, you know, when your children are going out into the world, be it at school or amongst their friends. Things that they learn and adapt to and conditioned by is not just what they hear from at home, but they hear at school, they hear from their friends, and etc. and etc. and etc. So if there's anything lacking in that chain, then bullshit and horrible awfulness does happen. And sometimes that requires those, unfortunately, to make the choice. But, again, true pro-life people would understand that. And understand this whole thing is a chain. You eliminate anything on this chain, it breaks. That is a societal chain. Political pro-life people just worry about abortion. That's it. Because that is their political football, that's their bread and butter, that is what gets the money flowing, that's what enthusiastically engages the people that support them and vote for them. Which again always lead me to wonder if these truly politically pro-life folks who doesn't give a shit after a child is born, if they really want abortion gone at all. Because that's a cash cow. That's, you know, you get on Fox News, you get on Newsmax, get on OAN, and be your dedicated champion for the babies. But you don't want to lose that money, do you? I almost liken it to like the medical community who, you know, spend so much time, you know, with the industry of building iron lungs for, like, say, polio. Polio gets cured, disappears from the world almost not immediately, but almost universally, just gone. You can find them here and there, but minuscule as compared to where it is now. I think all that money was lost. And the deal, though, is that in medical community, the various illnesses that we have, there's more money in the treatment than the cure. You follow me? Yeah. And like the issue of pro-choice and pro-life, there's a lot of money in the pro-life camp to be against it, to fight the good fight for it. Ooh. But then, if abortion is completely abolished, and it's gone, all that money for them to fight the good fight, all that support and all those votes that have kept them in the office, or anyone like them to be voted into that office, gone. Then they'll need another issue to, you know, demagogue, need another enemy to demonize, to have something so that they can blame others for the lot of their voters' lives, as compared to, you know, the responsibility of either them or these political hacks who do nothing but sound bites. See, this is just a rant into the void. This is just me pissed off right now because, again, I'm hearing all this, seeing all this, and the smug self-righteousness of people. Oh, thank God. I put up something about the 5 justices who had said that abortion was settled law. Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett, the new one from Trump, who, especially Amy, who had such a, who had, prior going into the justice seat, had a rarely established judicial career in striving to eliminate abortion. She says it was settled law. She wasn't going to go ahead. People were reassuring us is that no, they know it's settled law. Nothing's going to happen to abortion. Nothing's going to happen. And all I said, and as I said in the last video about this, I said just wait. Right. Was right. Now, they all said, these five all said it was settled law. Under oath, some of these said during their confirmation hearings. The three, at least. And I posted this, and I said in the topic line, thank God that they chose to lie under a sworn oath to God. Isn't that a little ironic? Once again, to try to circle back into where I started in all this, if you think you are a pro-life person, that a baby should be born at all cost, regardless of how that woman or young girl or very young girl got herself pregnant, and that's just completely irrelevant to you, that the baby must be born at all cost. And yet once that baby's born, you don't want to hear a fucking word about it, and you don't think the government should help and assist in any way because you are against healthcare, education, etc., that I have already laid out multiple times. And you have not word one about forced sterilization that has been happening under law from way back 95 years ago to the not way back when of 2019 and 2020 or even 2018, during this whole time of when we had the border crisis under Trump and under Biden now. Never let Biden off the hook on that bullshit. Ever. And you have no opinion on that being still on the books, and you have no opinion on the forced sterilization of other human beings. And if you do indeed think the knee-jerk answer, if anyone dares to ask you about it, is because they're not fucking Americans, you are not pro-life. That is just a political stance. That's just a talking point. That is an arguing point. I don't know what motivation you have. I frankly don't give a shit. But I'm getting tired of hearing about pro-life when it's not true. And this is for Democrats and Republicans too, because for 95 years, once again, no one said a word about this. One more minute of this. One more. There were so many people that want to make the arguments for and against abortion. Some people haul out stats, figures, haul out faith, their own belief system. They equate this to other things that has nothing to do with abortion, but because of it being a horrible thing, and abortion is a horrible thing. If you're for abortion, then you must be afford that horrible thing because it's about choice for some mystifiable reason into that debate. All you want to do is argue. People who truly care on both sides to feel it. And both sides are not wrong. I would never say that somebody's personal belief is wrong. Those personal convictions are wrong. Be it a pro-choice conviction or a pro-life conviction. But I would humbly say that it's right for them. No one should tell them that they're wrong, because you're not walking in their shoes. And to conflate that into something else to try to say, oh, that if you believe that, then you would have to believe this other thing. Bullshit. Keep to the topic. Stay on target. Because that is just trying to rattle people. That's emotional and mental manipulation in order to keep your point solid. That's just the way that is. Ranter rants because the urge to rant is always rising. Until this shit is off the books, until people actually giving a damn about a child after it's born, there's no such thing as pro-life. At all. And all these people are, from the young mothers, from whatever age, that wish that they need to make the choice, to the children inside that are the political footballs, to be born or not to be born. All they are political props. They're all part of the game. A game that we should all stop fucking playing. Talk to you later.